Hey listeners, if you've been immersed in Masters of Scale for a while, you've likely heard me talk about the concept of refounding. Refounding means joining an organization not only as a new leader, but as a catalyst for evolving its culture, roadmap, and strategy. It means honoring the valuable building blocks of the business while breathing new life into its everyday work and inspiring teams to take risks. And today, I'll be talking more about that with a refounder I know quite well. Jeff Berman. You may have heard him talking with me about AI on this podcast. And he is in fact the refounder behind this very show. He's taken on the role of CEO at Wait What, the media company that brings Masters of Scale to life. I met Jeff about 17 years ago when he had already had the vision for the evolution of media through technology, coming up to Silicon Valley to bridge the worlds between LA and Silicon Valley, to think about what kinds of new experiences, what kinds of learnings could actually in fact transform the experience for consumers of media. He comes from a background in the courtroom as a trial lawyer. He's advised government leaders on policy matters at the highest levels. He's played major roles across media and culture, from advertising at MySpace to digital media for the National Football League, and startups focused on women's sports and podcasting. Jeff has also been an executive in residence at my VC firm, Greylock Partners, where he helped many different founders scale. All of this makes him an excellent broker for fascinating conversations about scaling your business. And that's why I'm so pleased to have Jeff Berman join me as a host of Masters of Scale. You'll hear him in upcoming episodes with founders from areas like tech incubation, sports, and the retail food business. And I can't wait for you to get all the impactful lessons he and his guests have to share. Jeff, I don't have an actual chair to pass to you, but I'm thrilled to have you in the seat as host for a stint starting today with me for this important conversation about refounding.
Reed, it is great to see you. Thank you for making time to chat. Can you unpack a little bit how you view the difference between being a refounder and just coming in to take over?
One of the fundamental differences in a kind of a founder's mindset is there's a set of risks you have to take that if you don't take those risks, nothing happens. You die, right? It's part of the reason why I use the metaphor of starting companies like jumping off a cliff and assembling the plane on the way down is like, well, if you don't get the plane assembled, you hit the ground. So making a set of those calls that are not just kind of straightforward, like for example, what tends to be taught in more simplistic business school classes, well, what do your customers say? They ask for this feature, provide them that feature, versus the, what is the set of things that you need to do that are not, like accounting, like strategic decisions, but more like macro, like our market, our industry is changing in the following way. And here's how we go to where the puck is going versus where the puck has been, let alone like where it is right now. And that's part of why I think the kind of the founding mindset, the refounding mindset is important too. Now, I think part of the difference is you can be a very credible CEO and say, what I'm going to do is I'm going to recognize, kind of is the executive team playing well together? Are the right kinds of people in the job? Are they executing against the tasks that need to happen for this quarter, for this year? Like all of that stuff is within kind of classical, kind of what is the skill set of the CEO job. The refounding part of it is, what is the set of things that in my doing them, maybe I have a very long tenure here and I'll be benefiting from, but it's almost at such a tenure that the risks that I'm taking, what I'm doing, are going to be much more beneficial to whoever the next CEO is, right? And to some degree, that's also part of the founding mindset, because of the founding mindset, you're trying to create something that's going to survive you, that's going to be an enduring institution. If you said, well, I could have a CEO with maybe who's a little less proven, but has a refounding mindset, or I could have a CEO who's proven but doesn't have the refounding mindset. Personally, I would always opt for the refounding mindset, right? Now, it's also partially because the way that technology changes industries, companies, societies is if you look over the last 300 years, is an accelerating time scope. And that accelerating time scope means that almost always as a company, you need to be changing up the game some. And hey, we just continue to run the way that we were running 30 years ago seems much less likely to be the right answer, right? And so if that's the case, then, what does these new technologies mean for the way that we operate our entire company? And all of that will bring much more of the founding and refounding mindset to how you lead.
You go back to the Jeff Weiner conversation. I want to know what it was like for you as the founder to hand over your baby, who maybe at that point was kind of a teenager or an adolescent, I don't know how you'd frame it, to someone else and really, really try to disappear. How did you experience that?
Well, that transition was also part of the CEO transition. And there's a specific thing that you would want in a new CEO to be a refounder. It's one of the things that we've had as an arc in how to upgrade people's thinking about these entrepreneurial journeys is that actually, in fact, you want the CEO to be a refounder. The refounding is an important part of the reinvention that comes about as kind of technology. Now, the first part of that was how do we hand over the brain surgery that is a CEO transition? Because which I had done before, as I said, okay, I hired a CEO in a LinkedIn, Dan Nye, very good guy. But I hadn't actually figured out how you would ultimately really rewire the company, because the problem is that in the rewiring, that's because problems are hit. People don't believe the new CEO's direction. They have a question of uncertainty. They want to know if the old plan was still going or how the new organization works. And what people typically do, if they have the option to, is they go to the former CEO, right, as a way of doing it. And completely unintentionally, and obviously smart enough to not be doing it in any oblique, direct way, but it was essentially undermining Dan because I wasn't allowing those neural pathways to reconnect. And that's part of the reason I think, I didn't set up Dan to succeed in the kind of the first CEO position. When we brought in Jeff, it was like I brought him in with that experience, and I was like, look, well, one of the things we really need to do is we need to make sure that the entire organization is refocused on Jeff as the CEO. This is the way the order works. And even though Reed is still closely involved and still there, still has an office next to Jeff's and all the rest, I'm not going to immediately, anytime I hit the littlest bump, go to Reed in order to solve the problem, because you have to reform the neural connectivity. Because everyone presumes when you're hiring the CEO that you're heading for the hills. Like, this is the transition, you're leaving, et cetera. And he was like, no, I am still an essential part of the LinkedIn journey. I am here with Jeff. This is I'm the person who made this transition happen. I want it not because I'm leaving, but because that's the best thing for realizing what happens with LinkedIn and the company. And so how do you do that? Because you go, well, I'm out of the building so that the neural pathways will reform, but I'm out of the building. Am I supporting he's hired Jeff, he's left? So what I did is I said I had this kind of clever idea, which was I will accept every speaking engagement for the next 6 weeks, wherever they take me and whatever the level is. Because mostly, I probably turn down 98% plus of speaking engagement requests for what is, the few that I end up doing. And had people kind of going, wait a minute, your most valuable time isn't being at the speaking thing in Italy and France and, because a lot of it was in Europe, as it turned out.
Only the most horrible places for you to go.
Yeah. And it was a mutual friend of ours, my co-founder at LinkedIn, Alan Blue. I was in the hotel room in Italy, and I got called by Alan saying, we got a serious problem. And I was like, okay, are you telling me that I should publicly get on a plane, come back right now, and leave this conference in a lurch and come back and solve it because that's a problem? Or, I'll be back in 5 days, because I was kind of circling through town, and we could talk about it then. Can it wait for that? And he's like, yeah, it can wait for you to get back. And so I got back and I immediately called Alan and said, okay, so where are we? I solved it. I went and talked to Jeff and we solved it. It was like, and that was exactly the kind of kind of like the neurosurgery of transfer over of control of CEO that's actually very important to accomplish. Now, the refounder part of it, you want to give the opportunity to step into the kind of the moral authority of the refounding, which I think is an important thing for founders to be doing. And you want the person to step up and take it. You can't just give it to them. It has to be a kind of a, not quite as direct as a relay baton, but because it's kind of like the relay baton, you're like putting it in the person's hand as fast as possible. It's like, but you're kind of going, you should wear this mantle. And it's like, I think I should take it. Okay, let's go. And that moment with Jeff, was sitting down with me on a strategy. It's like, well, what do you think we should do here? And I was like, well, actually, in fact, you're the CEO. So you should be telling me what you think should do, and I will help. I'll give some hard questions. I'll give some suggestions. But at the end of the day, it's not you asking me what we should do. It's you deciding what we should be doing and me participating.
But
and that was kind of what
I want to dive in on that, Reed, because you could not have chosen a better human than Jeff Weiner to lead the company, or a better executive for that matter. I mean, truly an absolutely great person across the board. And I can imagine Jeff Weiner sitting there and saying, I'm not sure what to do. I want some counsel on this, much as Jeff might go to a board member or an advisor. Why did you feel he shouldn't come to you for the advice, that he should actually be saying, I want to do it this way, and then bouncing it off of you rather than kind of getting in the kitchen and cooking together on it?
Well, look, this was very early, right? This was establishing the pattern, and part of the difficulty you have is CEO, prominent shareholder, moral authority as founding CEO. And I really wanted to get it into, because this is the reason I'm the refounding moment. It's like, it's your ball. And we spent over a decade, having meetings every week, having meals multiple times a month, hashing through uncertain issues like, hey, we're trying to figure out like, what should we be doing around China, and what is how should the mission of the organization evolve? But in the very early part of it, what I was trying to make sure that Jeff understood in clear, unequivocal things is it's your ball, and I am of course delighted to help as much as possible. And I'm of course I'm not sure what to do here. What should I do? That's a different kind of question versus the, are you still in charge? Right? Is this your call to make? Right? And it's like, no, I'm not in charge. You're in charge. Part of how the refounder kind of role grew is one of the things that was key in Jeff's mission was professional education. And I, of course, think professional education is a good thing. I think LinkedIn Learning is doing all kinds of great things. But like, if I were choosing the short list about what I was doing when I was CEO, about what M&A I would do, which places I would invest, because part of what you're doing as a CEO is you're saying, I'm investing in things now that will start bearing fruit 3 to 10 years from now. You're lucky as a CEO if you get to do one of them. That's part of how you can tell like a refounder, because a refounder is doing that. It's like, it's not just, what are we doing for this quarter's numbers or this year's numbers, but it's the things that we're investing in such that the whoever the CEO is 5-10 years from now, you're investing in that future company, because you're thinking about what does that company look like as an ongoing institution in the world. And Jeff was focused on education, so bought Lynda. At that point, we'd already had enough of an established relationship that I was like, look, this isn't the thing I would choose to do, but if this is yours, this is the thing that is too often underdescribed in MBA schools and so forth, which is part of the mission of the organization is the mission of the CEO, kind of like synergizing with the organization. And you can make the education as part of the short list of LinkedIn's mission. And that could be part of your being the refounding CEO doing this. And that makes total sense to me. And by the way, you see that with AI and Satya, you see that, kind of across the board in what are the refounding, kind of CEOs.
I want to go back to both Jeff Weiner's decision to acquire Lynda and invest in professional education, and Satya Nadella's decision, which you talked about in a prior episode with him, about the OpenAI investment, which he acknowledges might not have happened under the prior regime at Microsoft. And so I'm curious about, you talk about take the ball and run with it. There's also a degree to which you at least have to be sensitive to, if not have some fidelity to, the earlier mission of the company. And so I'm curious whether you think that should factor in at all. If so, to what extent? How you would advise someone to think about that?
I think fundamentally there's kind of like two mistakes. One mistake is we're not evolving the mission at all. And the other mistake is it's now blank page and entirely something different. It's in between those two, and it can be closer to one or closer to the other, depending a little bit on what the circumstances of the company are, what the circumstances of the market are, what the circumstances of competition are. Because sometimes, by the way, companies need to do pretty hard pivots and restarts and all the rest, so it could be much closer to the blank page. And sometimes it's elaboration. Now, part of when we get to, for example, the Satya Nadella, everyone would have said, well, look, AI had been part of Microsoft's MSR and thinking, but part of the refounding moment for Satya was to say, look, the moment is now and it's really important. And the organization that's most figured out that what you need is, attention, transformers, and scale is OpenAI. And I have a unique ability to get ahead of the entire world. And I have that ability to do it, but with an unusual partnership. So we will take a risk. We will do something new. Again, taking a risk, doing something new is part of what refounders, more than just kind of professional CEOs, are willing to do, because that's the way that we realize the mission. And so how is this kind of refounding moment been experienced by you?
Yeah, I mean, it's different than anything I've experienced before. I mean, I think this is the fourth time in my career I've come into a company where part of the role has been to, to your point, evolve, not necessarily reinvent the mission, the culture, the systems, processes, the ways of working. It's the first time I'm doing it in a largely remote environment. And doing so, even with the perspective of serving the board of a not-for-profit that was built before COVID as a fully remote organization and protect democracy, and having some insight into how to do that well, boy, is it hard. It is hard to not feel people's energy. And so there are, pressing needs in areas where, thank goodness, I've got, some relationships and some experience and I can dive in quickly and get going. But it's been a fascinating process so far. And to your point about evolving mission, when I came into the company in September of 23, the mission was to elevate human potential. And that is a profound and lofty and meaningful mission, and also extremely broad, right? That could be Peloton's mission. That could be any number of companies' mission. It could be LinkedIn's mission. I think in part because of just analyzing where the market is and the market's going, and in part because we're not sitting in an office together every day solving problems in person with each other.
And what are the things that you would call your younger self now, 5 months into the job, and say, do more of this and less of this in that moment?
One of the things that the team had done an extraordinary job of, and this is a little bit of, first thing, don't break what's working, is not only a very thoughtful and intentional 3-day-a-week morning stand-up at a time where everyone could make it work, but a Thursday afternoon, highly programmed hour of sharing, culture building, team building, and we're blessed to have a member of our team, one of the co-founders, Jay Punjabi, who programs that hour for the entire company. And the extent to which we get to know each other personally, we have individuals presenting not so much what they're working on, but we have a team member who had her honeymoon in Japan recently, and she did a photo essay effectively of her honeymoon. And wow. And so, there's so much to do, Reed. There's so much work, and it would be so easy to spend all of our time doing the work and not spending time really getting to have a sense of who each other is as a human, what we're passionate about, what we care about, and building those human connections that would otherwise have happened around a water cooler or on a walk to get a coffee. That's been absolutely critical. And I have to say that the culture that June and Darren built and that the team sustained between their leaving and my coming on, my first thing was like, this is magic. Do not screw this up.
Yep. By the way, one of the other things that one of the delights of doing Masters of Scale is not just to our treasured audience get a chance to learn. I learn too. We learn. And one of the funny ones was my interview with Dara Khosrowshahi, where I was expecting him to kind of say, well, Uber was in this terrible place because there was this terrible culture that was very permissive about sexual harassment and a bunch of other stuff. And I had to come in and fix all that. And so it's like, I was expecting him to say, when I was asking the question, I rode in as the new sheriff in town. And he was like, no, actually, in fact, like a bunch of really good, well-meaning people. There was a bunch of really good elements in the culture. What I did is I took an approach, and I think is what everyone should do in all evolutions, whether it's Uber did have some real turnaround stuff that needed to happen. But even when not turnaround stuff, is to say, actually, in fact, we've assembled some really good people. We have some really good thinking here. We have some really good elements to our mission and culture. We should, when we evolve, we should refine and hold on to that. And that's exactly, even as an extreme position as Uber, what Dara did, which was, run a poll saying, here, what are our virtues, what are our values, and then selected the next set of stuff out of that thing. Now, it wasn't a complete democracy. It was like we threw everything in a pot, and then he highlighted the ones that would be, as the CEO, that would be there, but it was a collaborative process. And so I think the way that you came in, the exact right thing to do.
Yeah, and one of the things that I didn't do, which I've subsequently questioned whether was the right decision, I'm curious about your take on this. When Jeff Weiner came into the LinkedIn role, he talks about meeting with all 330 team members and really going on a listening tour. On the second day of our offsite, when I came into the company, Shira Ackerman from our team, near the end of the second day, asked me if I was going to do one-on-ones with everyone in the company. And I took a deep breath and I said, no, at least not yet, because we have some really pressing priorities that I have to attend to make sure that we're on the right track. What is your advice to incoming CEOs and or refounders, where they may be small fires, but they're fires that have to be attended to, and balancing that against the need to really understand who the team is, where they are, what they need, et cetera.
So your question obviously evokes the Selena Tabakawala episode, which is an excellent episode for the people who haven't listened to it, on Let Fires Burn. Because you do, on the entrepreneurial journey, have to let fires burn, both as a CEO, as a refounder, as a founder, sometimes as an employee, because it's like I focus on the triaging to the most important one and then get to the other ones later. My book, The Alliance, I kind of described these 3 tours of duty, which included the transformational one, which I think is what, generally speaking, most modern jobs are. But there's also a foundational tour of duty. And I think one of the things that you're trying to do is you're trying to get that spread of ownership of the problems, the fires, the challenges, the culture, the identity, more beyond just the individual, because individuals can also be on foundational tours of duty. And I think part of it is not just solving the problems themselves, but also getting the team and the culture and certain members of the team to kind of reformulate to, okay, we are problem solvers here. And sometimes, by the way, that allows people to try to solve a problem and not do it so well, fail at it, do it partially, etc. But it's more important to be building those muscles, building those mindsets, building that kind of mentality.
Well, I think we may have coined a new term for the next edition of Startup Review, which is a refoundational tour of duty. So Reed, I'm coming up on 6 months, and we'll have my second quarter board meeting with my board. And if you were sitting on our board with a refounder here, beyond the financial metrics, obviously, how would you be gauging my success in this role? What should I be anticipating from the terrific board members that I'll be meeting with in a month or so?
It's like one of the paradoxes of entrepreneurship is the yin and yang of it. It's like you should both be long-term and short-term. You should both have a persistent vision, but you should be flexible to, competition, market, other kinds of changes, technology changes. And a little bit of it is kind of the question of, yes, you have to be doing what's the financial state of the business? Are we executing against that? What are the things that we're going to need to accomplish in terms of revenue, fundraising, other kinds of things? Are the talent set up the right way? Is the organization kind of coalesced around you as a leader, all of which, kind of baseline importance? But then also a little bit of and then what is frequently in industry described as BHAG. But it's
big, hairy, audacious goals. Yeah, for
exactly.
Those who don't know. Yeah.
But it's like, here is kind of like what the major mission is. Here's the big game that we're playing. That is that transformation. And here is how you blend that yin and the yang of where we are now and also what we're trying to get to. Because, frequently the way the board members ask this question most often is kind of like, okay, so look, everyone's talking about artificial intelligence. How does that change what our strategy, our goals, our way of operating? How is it going to change how our industry is going to be? How do we become more of a leader? We're already a leader in our industry, but how do we become even more of a leader in the industry given that? And what are the things that we're doing? And to some degree, the board members will probably first wait for you to say something to see if you're naturally triggering on that, and then ask questions about it is I think the pattern by which this will most typically happen.
Great. Super helpful. We'll stick the landing on the board meeting with that advice. Thank you so much, Reid. Insights here are invaluable, and deeply grateful for your time and wisdom. And thanks for helping me in my job as well.
Well, likewise. And I could not be more delighted than to be continuing down this path, partnering with you and the rest of the amazing What organization.
Thanks, Reid. Appreciate you.